Hi, everybody. My name is Sarah Gripshover. I work with the PERTS lab at Stanford University. I'm going to be telling you today a little bit about the research that we're doing with community colleges to increase student achievement by teaching them a growth mindset. So I'll be telling you about that in just a second. And I also have my colleague Rachel here, who is going to be following your questions as you submit them to the Google Plus page. So we definitely encourage you to ask a lot of questions, and we'll be answering those at the end of the webinar content. So great, I'll just get started then. Let me share my screen so you can see my slides. All right. All right, so my name is Sarah Gripshover, and as I said, I work with the Stanford PERTS lab. PERTS is an applied research center at Stanford University, and our main goal is to use psychology to find ways to increase student achievement. And the point of this webinar is to describe the research we're doing with community college students, and this is research that I hope at least some of the people listening today will eventually get their schools involved in. So our agenda is first to talk about why we would focus on community colleges. And second, we're going to talk about what a growth mindset is and why it's important. The third thing that we're going to talk about is the College Perspectives program, the current research that we're doing. We'll talk about past research, and then what the current study logistics look like for teachers, for students, and for community colleges. And then I'm going to really try to leave at least 20 minutes at the end of this presentation for questions. Oh, and I'm being told that you guys can see my presenter view, so I'll just turn that view off. Right. All right, great. So why focus on community colleges? Well, student success in community college is really important because 56% of all US students attend a community college. And yet only 23% of those students earn an associate's degree or transfer within 6 years of first attending. Furthermore, only 30% of students pass their developmental math requirements that they need to move on to other coursework. And when we talk to instructors, we hear about students who start out hopeful. They want to do well in school, but at some point they sort of shut down. And these students may stop coming to class and stop handing in assignments. And eventually this results in them kind of slipping through the cracks and not meeting the goals that they set for themselves in the beginning. So what kinds of things affect student success? Well, there are a lot of factors that contribute to student success, and they're all important and all worth addressing. For example, differences in initial ability and preparation for college influence student success. The quality of the instruction they receive and the college education that they receive are obviously also important. Students' previous experience with school is a huge contributing factor. And of course, structural factors such as poverty or the ability to finance a college education play a critical role as well. The factor that we're going to focus on today, though, is students' mindsets. So we think another important factor in students' success is students' beliefs about school and about learning that they bring to the learning environment. So this leads me to part 2. What is a growth mindset? Research by Carol Dweck and her colleagues for the last 3 or 4 decades has revealed that certain beliefs can act either as psychological barriers or psychological facilitators for student success. And they do this by influencing how students interpret effort in their schoolwork, how they interpret failures and setbacks that, these are inevitable things in college, and how students interpret those things, and how they set academic goals for themselves. So what are barrier beliefs? Well, a few examples of barrier beliefs might be things like a student saying, "I'm too stupid to do this." "I just don't get math." "I must not be cut out for college." research shows that these kind of beliefs can be traced to what we call a fixed mindset. And a fixed mindset is the belief that intelligence is a fixed trait, kind of like eye color. You're born with a certain amount of intelligence, and you really can't do that much to change it. We can contrast a fixed mindset with a growth mindset. And in a growth mindset, a student believes intelligence is more like muscle strength. So with practice and good strategies, it is possible to significantly and meaningfully grow your own intelligence. And these mindsets have consequences for motivation. So let's think about how a fixed mindset and a growth mindset might play out in a student's life. First of all, when it comes to goals, a student in a fixed mindset, when they're in a classroom situation, their goal might be to try to look smart or convince people that they have a lot of this fixed intelligence, or at least avoid looking like they're one of the not smart ones. Whereas in a growth mindset, students are free to set a goal to learn. They're not so fixated on their initial level of ability and what that means about them. So the goal can really be to learn. When it comes to effort, for a student who's in a fixed mindset, having to work really hard in class can make them feel like, oh, I'm having to work really hard, I must not be that smart. Whereas a student who's in a growth mindset can view effort as exactly what they need to do. It's the means by which they get smarter. When we encounter the inevitable challenges of college, to a student in a fixed mindset, those challenges can feel like a confirmation that they really weren't cut out for the class or for the subject in the first place. And so it might feel like a rational decision to give up and maybe try something that comes more naturally. Whereas a student in a growth mindset is more likely to respond to challenges by actually working harder and seeking help to find good strategies to learn more. And all of these different reactions to school kind of sum up to lead students with a fixed mindset to lower academic achievement, whereas students with a growth mindset tend to be led to higher academic achievement. So that's kind of the explanation for why growth mindset is important. But we don't like to deal just in explanations. We like to have evidence. So I'm going to talk just briefly about some evidence from a nationwide sample. This was a study conducted in Chile. And it was conducted by Susana Claro at Stanford University and Dave Panescu of PERTS and Carol Dweck. And what they did is they embedded a short mindset assessment in the Chilean National Achievement Test. So this is a test that all students in Chile are required to take. So it was a huge sample. It was 147,000 students. And what they found was really striking. So first of all, among students with a fixed mindset, those students were 4 times more likely to score in the bottom 5th of percentiles on the test. Students with a growth mindset were 3 times more likely to score in the top 5th of the distribution of test scores. And this finding, I think, is really especially striking. So let's look at this graph for a minute. So the dashed line on top represents students with a growth mindset, and the solid line on the bottom represents students with a fixed mindset. The middle line represents students with kind of a mix of both mindsets. And from left to right on this graph, you can see students' family income percentile. So students in the 0th percentile would be the poorest students in the country, whereas students in the 100th percentile would be the wealthiest students in the country. And what the red arrows point out is that students in the lowest income percentile who had a growth mindset got essentially the same scores on the Chilean National Achievement Test as students with a fixed mindset who scored in the students with a fixed mindset whose family income percentile was in the 80th percentile range. So these beliefs may sound, pretty simple, but they really can have powerful effects for student achievement, and that's why we think that they're so important to address. So what about students with a fixed mindset? Are they just doomed? Well, we think no, they're not doomed because mindsets can change. We have a lot of evidence at this point that interventions and classroom practices can, in fact, shift students' mindsets. And when their mindsets do shift, their learning is improved. So there's a lot of studies that have showed this. For example, an 8-week course increased the grades of middle school students. So this was a course where they were taught about having a growth mindset and about how the brain can grow and change. And it caused their grades to increase over the course of middle school. In another study, a mentoring program where mentors imparted a growth mindset reduced the racial achievement gap among 4-year college students. But none of the studies that have been done so far have been done with community college students. And we think community college is a really important population because, first of all, community college is just a critical gateway for economic mobility in this country. And second of all, students who enter community college are often disproportionately underprepared for college-level coursework. And so they're facing a lot of challenges that they then have to deal with. And furthermore, research by the Carnegie Foundation has showed that community college students are more likely to hold a fixed mindset. So you've got a combination of students who are more likely to have a fixed mindset and really be discouraged by setbacks, facing a disproportionately high number of setbacks. So we thought that community college is just an especially important population for this work. And that's why we wanted to bring these findings to a community college setting. And that brings me to part 3 of what I wanted to tell you today, which is the pilot study that we did. So I'm going to present the findings from this study. The findings I'll present involve 968 community college students. And these students completed an online activity. So the online activity required about 60 minutes total of students' time. And students were randomly selected either to see a growth mindset activity designed to teach that the brain is malleable and that we can grow our intelligence, or a control activity. So the growth mindset activity talked about neuroplasticity and how the brain can form new connections, and those connections make us smarter, and discussed the implications of neuroplasticity for intelligence, for the meaning of having to work hard in a class, and for the importance of help seeking and other learning strategies. And writing exercises are used to reinforce this message. So we asked students to read through some reading materials about growth mindset and then help us explain this message to other students. So it's really important to point out here that this program is drawing on decades of research in persuasion and social psychology. So this program doesn't just tell students to have a growth mindset. And in fact, we think simply telling them to have a growth mindset wouldn't actually work. Instead, the program calls on decades of persuasion research, like I said, and draws on principles like, for example, source credibility. So we actually present real research from real academic journals in support of our claims that the brain can get stronger. We not only present scientific evidence for growth mindset, but we also really try to articulate the causal mechanism to answer the question of how the brain gets smarter. So, we do talk about brain cells and about how cells can form new connections, and this results in the brain becoming smarter. Furthermore, students are less led to endorse the message publicly. So when we ask them to explain the message to other students, they're putting themselves out there as endorsing the message. And we find that this actually has a self-persuasive effect. When you endorse a message for someone else, you kind of end up persuading yourself too. And finally, this is really important. The program is framed for students as being honorific rather than remedial. And what I mean by that is if we came to students and said, hey, you look like you need a growth mindset, we don't think that they would react very well to this. I think it could make students feel defensive to think that they're being targeted for a remedial intervention. So instead we say, can you help us explain this message to other students? So we're putting them in a position of authority and saying, you're an expert on, you know, how students think. Can you please help us present this material? So that was the growth mindset activity in a nutshell. The control activity was designed to be very similar to the growth mindset activity. So students are still learning about the brain. They still complete writing exercises, but there's no growth mindset message. And so what the control activity allows us to do is, if we take students and just randomly say, hey, you're going to see the growth mindset activity, you're going to see the control activity, then if we see any differences between those groups later, we know those differences can be attributed to the activities themselves. So what were the results of this pilot study? Well, the first thing we found was that students who went through the growth mindset activity were more likely than the control group to earn the required 12 or more credits that are necessary to attain full-time status at the end of the semester. And we also found that students who completed the growth mindset activity were more likely than the control group to earn credit in at least one science, technology, engineering, and math course. And the reason we looked at those courses in particular is, number one, they just tend to be hard courses. Students often have a hard time passing courses in those subjects, and that can hold them back in their progress towards a degree. And also, we think that STEM fields in general are fields where people tend to have an especially fixed mindset about, you know, your math ability or your technological capacity. So we found effects in both of those areas. And we're really excited about these results. We think they're really promising. And just to give you kind of a flavor of how a 60-minute online activity could yield such striking results, I want to just read to you a few anonymous samples of things students actually wrote during the activity. So what do students write? When we asked students to help us explain the growth mindset message to other students, one student wrote, "When I was in high school, I had a teacher who constantly expressed two things: that nothing comes easy and there is no such thing as a dumb question. And I still to this day believe those things. Always ask questions. I have never been a very good student, and I have barely received the average C grade. I have had to work hard for every single grade I have received. Still, at times, I think that it isn't worth it, or I'm not smart enough. But then I remember that if a teacher and I remember that teacher and those sayings, and I keep persevering. If I can do it, so can you." Another student said, "I know how it feels to feel like the whole world is smarter and better than you. And I want you to know that you are not stupid, and that even if you're behind in some way, you can catch up. If you put work and effort into what you want to do and go about it the right way, you can grow, you can learn, you can achieve the things that you thought yesterday you couldn't. It may be hard, it may be strenuous, it may even be headache-inducing, but in the end, it will pay off spectacularly. Just keep at it." I have spent many nights hunched over at my desk at 2 in the morning, calling myself dumb because I cannot get the right answer on a math problem. But one day I realized I'm not dumb. Learning just takes work. Just because it may seem like it comes much easier to some people than to you does not mean they are smarter than you. Maybe they learn really well just from listening in class, and maybe you learn better in a way that you haven't given much thought to. There's nothing wrong with studying harder than others to understand something. I know it seems unfair or tedious, but the hard work will pay off. Nothing worth having comes easy. So before I move on, I think these excerpts from students' responses really highlight that, even though it is just an online activity, students tend to really engage with it, and they tend to think about the growth mindset message and really relate it to the context of their own lives. So that I think the activity has such a powerful effect on their persistence and achievement in school. So the current research program, what are we doing next? Well, the next step is to try to take this program and see if we can get the same results on a large. As Brick and colleagues pointed out, the history of educational innovation is replete with stories that show how innovations work in the hands of a few, but then lose effectiveness in the hands of the many. It's really important to us not to just publish these findings and move on with our lives. We really want to take these findings and see how we can make these kinds of programs work for a larger number of schools. So we've secured federal funding now to test these materials on a larger scale. This is the largest study of its kind that's ever been attempted with community colleges. And we hope the results, if they're positive, could change community college education nationwide. So the College Perspectives program in 2016. What is this study about? Well, it's a research trial of a program to teach growth mindset, very similar to the program I described to you earlier. It was developed through a years-long collaboration with community colleges and experts in the field of academic motivation. So community college classrooms actually piloted the program and in the results that I just showed you. And furthermore, students and instructors helped develop the program through focus groups and interviews. So these materials were really developed with input from students and instructors. And it was developed also in collaboration with Carol Dweck and Greg Walton, so two leading mindset researchers. And that's what we're bringing to the table, and that's what we're wanting to test as part of this research. So how does the study work? Well, from an instructor's point of view, we send out session instructions for instructors. These are about 4 pages long. They're just a PDF. And the session instructions offer a web link to the program activity. So students just go to the program online. They offer a script for introducing the study to students. They offer answers to frequent student questions, and they offer strategies for troubleshooting any technical difficulties they may arise. So the program involves 2 sessions. The first session is a 45-minute long session in a computer lab, or it could be a 30 to 40-minute homework assignment. And that session occurs during weeks 2 or 3 of a particular course. Session 2 lasts only 15 minutes in a computer lab, or it could be a 10-minute homework assignment. And this session should take place in week 6 or 7 of the course. And I should note that for classes that are assigning the program as homework, we do ask that that assignment be mandatory, that it be assigned for credit, not for extra credit. All right, so from students' point of view, well, they first follow the link that their instructor gave them and they log into the study website. And then they read our informed consent document. So this explains, all the details of the study, who to call if they have questions about it, etc. And this language has been improved by Stanford's Institutional Research Board. If students at that point decide they don't want to participate in research, we offer an alternate assignment so that this is just to prevent in any way coercing students to participate in research. But the vast majority of students go on to complete the rest of the study. And when they do, they first answer some survey questions about mindset. So questions like, how much do you agree that you can learn new things, but you can't really change your basic intelligence? And this just gives us a baseline measure of where they are in terms of their growth versus fixed mindset at the beginning of the study. Students are then randomly selected to complete the growth mindset activity or the control activity. And these are activities that I described earlier. So what does implementation look like for colleges? Well, the program will begin in fall 2016, And I'm just going to kind of read through some of the requirements of the studies. So first, the study must be implemented as part of a gateway or developmental math course. So that would either be a math course that students take before they're in a class that offers college level credit, or the first class that they take for college level credit. Or it could be implemented as part of a general skills course. So some schools have courses that teach general study skills or non-cognitive skills and things like that, especially for developmental students. The program also must be made mandatory curriculum content. And what we mean by that is we want schools to not just kind of offer the program to whatever instructors want to do it. We're really looking for research partners who are able to say, okay, all instructors of this particular course are going to do the study this semester. It's not optional for instructors. The school must be able to enroll a minimum of 600 students in the study. So those would be students who are going to be enrolled in those gateway or developmental math courses or skills courses. Each school must select a school coordinator for the study. So to be a coordinator involves about 20 hours of work total across the entire semester. That's just to oversee the study and to answer questions from faculty and make sure things are going well. The 20 hours tend to be front-loaded also. So it tends to be a lot of work at the beginning of the semester and then less as the semester goes on. The school must obtain approval for the study from its own institutional review board. And in order to evaluate whether the program is helping students at different schools or not, we asked each school to securely submit achievement data, and that achievement data is identifiable. So this data would include transcript records, transfer records from the National Student Clearinghouse, and graduation records. We have very secure protocols for transferring that data and for handling the data once we receive it. We never share it with anyone outside of our immediate research team. But I just want to be completely upfront that the study does involve sharing identifiable student data. And finally, we ask for letters of agreement from the college president, from the department chair of whatever department is hosting the intervention activity. We have a set of materials we send to the potential coordinator and make sure they know what they're signing up for and agree to play that role. And then we also need someone from the institutional research department or the school's data team to sign off on the study to make sure that we can actually get the data that we need in order to evaluate it. Okay, so I want to say thank you on behalf of the PERTS team. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to listen to me talk to you about this work. We really appreciate it, and I'd love to see what questions you guys had while I was talking.
So you can probably take it off.
Should I go back to?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I'm so backlit. Let's see if this is any better. Okay.
So here are some of the questions. These are the two main ones.
Great. When we talked about my college participating in an earlier study, you decided our college should not participate because students in many of our writing classes are given articles on mindset to read and write about. Are we still concerned? Yeah, that's a great question. So the answer is maybe. I think we're trying to avoid working with schools that are already really saturated with growth mindset instruction. But we also recognize that schools who want to work with us in this kind of project are probably going to be schools that are already interested in growth mindset for other reasons. So I think we've loosened our thinking about that to a large degree. But in order to make a determination about an individual school, we'd have to know more details about, what what the growth mindset initiative is, how many students it affects, when it takes place in students' trajectories, and so forth. Okay, another question says, I'm a faculty coordinator for an SI adaptation program for English and ESL classes for students in community college. I'm wondering if these videos could be used with supplemental instructors or tutors during SI tutoring sessions. So you'll have to forgive me, I don't know what SI stands for. Oh, supplemental instruction. So right now the program that we're offering is really only for the developmental math or skills course context. I think that growth mindset is a great thing to incorporate into any curriculum. If you're looking for more general just resources on how to teach growth mindset in a particular class, I would definitely refer you to the mindset kit. So you can find a kit that we put together at www.mindsetkit.org. And the kit it's geared more towards K through 12 instruction, but I think there's a lot of content there that you could adapt for a college context. And that would be a good resource for a different kind of course. After the study, you have said we would get 3 years of PERTS, support or involvement. What exactly will the payoff be to our institution beyond the big scale study? Yeah, so we said that schools who participate now would have at least 3 years of access to the PERTS program. So this would be continued research for those 3 years. And so one thing it would offer your school is just a better, clearer picture of how well the program is actually working to help your students. So if a school starts the program with 600 students, that might not be enough of a sample size to really understand for that particular school, how well the program worked there. And if you do the program for 3 years, it just helps get a better evaluation. So that's one thing. A second benefit is that the school will simply get access to our materials that we've put so many resources into developing for 3 years. So I think that's a really strong benefit in itself. And yeah, I think those are 2 good ones. I hope that answers your question. Anything else? So to learn more about the study, you can go to www.perts.net/college-perspectives. And Rachel will put that, she'll put that up in the Google Plus page as well. There's a video on that page. There's a detailed set of program requirements on that page. And there's a short form that you can fill out to let us know that your school might be interested and have us set up a call with you to explore things further. Great. So, one more question. Is the commitment for 1 semester? Yeah, so right now, schools that start with us right now, we would ask for a definite commitment for 1 semester only, but we hope to be building longer standing research relationships with the schools we work with. We find that we're able to serve schools better and learn more at the same time if we can foster a long-term relationship. But we would be asking you to commit just for the semester. Okay, so although we have mindset assignments going on in writing, I think a lot of students are not being reached. Would you consider adding an item somewhere in your research protocol to measure that? Yeah, so our research protocol does have some measures to, first of all, understand where students are in terms of their baseline growth mindset, and we have some measures that ask students how much their instructors talk about growth mindset. So I think that would get at that question somewhat. but again, if you're not sure whether your school would be eligible, I strongly encourage you to just go ahead and fill out the form, and we can make that assessment on a case-by-case basis. Okay. We just found out about this webinar today, so some stakeholders couldn't attend. Is this recorded so that we could show it to others? Well, yes, it is recorded. We're recording the whole thing. We're going to put it up on our website. Is that right?
And on YouTube.
And on YouTube. So yes, they can definitely watch it later. We're just scrolling through to see if we missed any questions. Great. Well, if there are no more questions, then again, I want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your day. I know on the East Coast, it's pretty close to 8 o'clock. So, I really appreciate everybody who took the time to join us today. And if you have further questions or, anything like that, please feel free to reach out to me. Is my email on the Google Plus page?
No, but we can put it up there.
Yeah, Rachel will put my email address up on the Google Plus page. And thank you so much.